Ladies and gentlemen, after a lot of uncertainty and chaos ensued over the H-1B visa hike issue, the Trump administration has issued a clarification that the $100,000 fee will be a one-time requirement. He also suggests that while introducing this policy move, he said that this is essentially to push companies to hire American workers. Now, clearly, not only does this impact how tech companies hire, but also their remittances. In fact, Citi, in its latest report, has suggested that the same, and in terms of an impact on IT companies, Citi expects no change to Indian IT's competitiveness in the global context. Meanwhile, India's Ministry of External Affairs reacted to the matter and stated in a statement that H-1B policy measure is likely to cause distress for families, and the government hopes that these disruptions can be addressed suitably by the United States authorities. So let's unpack this and understand what to make of this move, the expected growth trajectory for IT companies going forward, with our guest who's joining us now, Mr. Ganesh Natarajan, the Executive Chairman, 5F World and GTT Data, is joining us. Thank you very much, Mr. Natarajan, for taking the time out and speaking to us here on ET Now. First things first, the H-1B visa issue is not really a new one. It has bucked the industry earlier as well on several occasions for a very long period of time. We did see, however, the IT index get impacted today in trade on the back of this news. But what do you understand from your vantage point? Where do Indian companies stand as of today in context to this policy move that has come in from the US administration?
See, fortunately, I don't think we will be greatly affected. And I'll tell you why. Because over the last almost 20 years, the nature of the business has moved more and more towards offshore. There has been less reliance on sending young people to America to work on projects. So I think the whole staff augmentation business, which is where we started, has kind of completely tapered off. That's one. The second is, if you look at the numbers, I mean, okay, there are close to 300,000 people working on H-1B visas in the US. But as you rightly said, most of them are not affected because they are on current status. If you look at the new applicants and the new joiners from H1 over the years, I think last year the figure was around 60,000 from India, which is from the Indian IT companies or from the India-centric companies was probably just about 10,000 as per the NASSCOM data. So from that point of view, if you look at the industry size, I mean, we're talking about close to 6 million people employed, and 10,000 people will have a problem of not being able to travel for IT companies. You can imagine the impact is not very high. Having said that, I mean, it is a downer for young people who have the American dream. They want to finish their engineering, join a company, and immediately apply for an H1. And I think that's going to be a bit of a sentiment problem, but more for the individual. And I would say less as a profit deleting or a profit affecting move for the industry itself.
Right, Mr. Natarajan, I believe that you're joining us live from New York. What's the sentiment in New York as far as Indians who are residing in the United States is concerned on the back of this policy that's been unveiled by the US administration? In fact, several policies have been unveiled by the US administration which have not gone down well right here in India. But what's the sentiment that you're gathering from the Indian community that's based in New York?
See, the sentiment in the last 3 days, as you also know, has been jumping from extreme disappointment to a sense of relief. Because initially the perception was that somebody in the US getting onto a plane may not be able to come back, or somebody on H-1B, if they renew their visas, will have to pay $100,000. Fortunately, I think the White House and the US administration has clarified all this. So I think the sentiment will be more of a downer for India. I mean, people who are, let's say, hoping to apply in the H-1 lottery in February this year and get approved and go off to the US. For them, it'll be a dampener because, I mean, it's not going to be easy to get companies to pay that additional $100,000 to get a very young person to America. But within the US, people who are working here, no cause for alarm whatsoever.
Right, Mr. Natarajan, but does the United States have enough tech talent to replace these workers? And how do you think this is going to pan out, especially as far as the United States as a tech market is concerned?
I was having a discussion with my daughter yesterday. I mean, she is a US citizen, works in the medicine area. And her perception was that this whole hype about America doesn't have enough talent is probably a little overdone because there are enough people graduating from the community colleges as well as the regular colleges. There's some very, very good institutions in America. So it is absolutely possible. And even in Indian IT companies ourselves over the last 10 years have been setting up centers in America, training young people for jobs. So I don't think there's that much of an issue. Sure, I mean, a bright Indian graduate who is coming to the US, highly motivated, may be missed or to a certain extent. But I don't think it is any panic button for any American company to say, oh my goodness, I won't get the talent. Because talent can be trained. And I think the move is there in America to train a lot more people for jobs in every industry.
Right, Mr. Natarajan, let me move on and essentially move on to how companies have reacted to that policy move by the US administration. In fact, companies and the communication suggest that the impact is likely to be minimal, and that's essentially what you also stated. But what will IT companies do furthermore to de-risk?
Well, you will have to you have to rethink your model all the time. And we have been doing that as an industry because the model today is doing work where it makes sense to do the work. I mean, if it's a implementation on site in any country, obviously people may have to be there. But if most of the work, whether it's a migration job or it's an AI implementation, most of it can be done from offsite. Because there's so many good telecommunication networks today that physical presence at a particular location is very, very unnecessary in most cases. So I think companies, to answer your question, will focus more on how do you do a multi-shore project implementation and how do you minimize people having to travel from one country to the other, which to my mind is good for the company, it's good for climate change, it's good for everything.
Right, Mr. Natarajan, and that does push the AI march even further. And of course, companies will have to quickly adapt and, of course, integrate AI functioning into their business models. And that does also give a push to GCCs. We do hope that the government rolls out the GCC policy in the near term. But let me move on and ask you about, the implementation of this policy that the Donald Trump administration has unveiled. How will it unfold, given the fact that Donald Trump's other policy moves have suffered implementation woes? So how do you expect this to pan out over a period of, let's just say, 6 to 12 months?
See, I mean, I think the calendar is very obvious because they are saying that for new applications from end of September onwards, this will kick in. So let's assume that September 30th onwards, $100,000 will have to be paid for every new applicant. This automatically expires in 1 year's time, end of September, by which time it can either be extended on a year-to-year basis, or it can be converted to a regular act by taking it through Congress and the Senate. So that's how it will play out. So if it is seen as a success by the administration, and their jobs, I mean, their goal obviously is to create more jobs for Americans. And if that is seen that the immigration has come down because of this policy, there will certainly be an extension. So I don't think this is going to go away. Whether it becomes a formal bill in the Congress or it just gets extended by 1 more year or 1 more year after that, we'll have to wait and watch. So I think that's the calendar year looking forward to.
Right. Right, Mr. Natarajan. So this is a reality that Indian companies and, of course, Indians who are looking to go into the United States need to live with. But how do you see this move by the Trump administration, given the fact that this is coming in at a time when India and the United States are engaged in talks for a bilateral trade agreement? Minister Piyush Goyal is in the United States. Will this sort of negotiation tactic, this way of Donald Trump actually strong-arming and trying to bully other countries, will this work on India?
Well, that's a lot of allegations, so I don't know. But I really think that this has been coming in the sense that there has been a lot of discussion ever since Donald Trump became the president again in this term. That I mean, the whole "Make America Great Again," jobs for Americans, etc., has been part of the narrative, and in which he won the presidency. So I don't think it's a sudden move. I do not think, but that's my personal opinion, that this is part of any negotiating tactic on the ongoing trade and tariff discussions. But yes, there is a lot of stuff up in the air. And I'm hoping that, over time, because America is an amazing country and it is probably the most attractive destination for work, for so many other things. So in that context, having a peaceful resolution to the tariff discussions, that's one. Second is making sure that, we stabilize at how work can be done for American companies, because the American company needs Indian talent as much as Indian talent needs American companies. So I think I'm very hopeful that by end of this calendar year, all this will settle down and we'll find a new method of working which works for everybody.
Absolutely. And everybody is hoping that hopefully there will be some sort of stability as far as the United States administration is concerned. But, sir, India in a statement has suggested that it hopes that this will be addressed suitably by the United States. But these protectionist policies, what will they end up yielding from countries like India and China in terms of reciprocal measures? Do you see more collaboration, for instance, happen on IT and tech talent between India and China?
I doubt, honestly. I mean, having lived and I'm not really lived, but worked with China for across two of my previous jobs, Aptech and Zensar, I have great respect for China. But China also tends to be very inward looking in the sense that they will do what works for Chinese companies. But is there too much of collaborative possibilities in IT between India and China? I don't think so, honestly. I mean, it may come through the statements made by various people, but I think we will have to build our own partnerships, which we've always done, whether it's with the Western world or Southeast Asia or Middle East. At the same time, China, of course, very strong in semiconductors and artificial intelligence. They will find their own way. So I think there's going to be a healthy cooperation, but not too much of collaboration at this point in time.
Not too much of collaboration, but healthy competition is something that you are predicting as far as India and China ties are concerned. And of course, this entire tech story, the tech angle is concerned. But sir, big corporate voices have been suggesting that it's perhaps time to head back home and build here, right here in India. But is that vision realistic?
Well, it is realistic, of course, and I think the government is taking a lot of steps in terms of their whole, the investments in research that you have seen over the last 6 months. There have been a lot of announcements. It is a fact that we have been laggards as far as product is concerned. We need a product ecosystem where maybe 100 billion of Indian product, $100 billion of Indian products are consumed in India, and there's still a lot of reliance on global products. So, without going to any jingoism in terms of only buy from India, etc., I think more and more good products coming out of India, more and more deliberate consumption of Indian products by Indian large companies and by individual consumers, I think that will help the market. Yes, surely. I mean, when we talk about a Viksit Bharat, we need a lot more self reliance. And from that point of view, here is an opportunity for entrepreneurs to build for India, build in India. And I'm hoping that will happen and will be a positive outcome of all the kind of flat world negation that's happening by everybody looking out for themselves.
Absolutely. Mr. Natarajan, we'll have to see how that manufacturing in India story really unfolds, even though we've seen that the government has given a push to manufacturing and made in India, but not just made in India, made for the world as well. However, as far as technology is concerned, I'll just give you one example. When we talk about the semiconductor ecosystem, the kind of investments that are going on in China, in the United States, perhaps they far exceed what's happening currently in India on some of the aspects. We have been a little late to the party. For instance, the AI a model that's already been developed by China and, of course, the United States first.
No, that is very true. And again, but I'm glad that there are being steps being taken. I mean, if you look at a lot of the work being done in Niti Aayog, for instance, I think there was an announcement of a multi-sectoral AI policy that just happened last week, which is quite amazing and I think very, very progressive. What Minister Vaishnav has been talking about in terms of India's own attempts at AI are good. You're right, China has an amazing lead. They have amazing institutions, academic and research institutions. And I'm not saying that we are in any position to compete with China or the US in AI, but we are getting there. And very similar to what China did with DeepSeek and the inference model, which is as against the large language model or the LLM model, I think India has to find its place in the sun. We have always succeeded, even in IT services, because of a clear understanding of customer applications. So, application oriented AI, narrow language models, small language models, I think inferences, I think all these are going to be what India's play will be. And there's enough opportunity. I mean, AI is at very much a nascent stage in the industry. And I think if we grab our opportunities, we can really do very, very well in that area.
Right, Mr. Natarajan, one final question before we let you go. In light of this new policy that's been unveiled by the US administration, what do you think is going to happen to graduates who are looking at that American dream, who are perhaps looking at going into the United States and, of course, working for some of the tech companies over there in the country? What really happens to those graduates?
Honestly, if you ask me, and right now my focus is a lot of on the social sector and in talent management, and it is a worry. I mean, today the jobs are scarce in India, and I'm not even talking about the American dream, the Indian dream. I mean, many of us when we graduated from engineering or management, we had, 3 job opportunities in our pocket and we had a, freedom of choice. Today it's become a problem. I mean, today there's a lot of underemployment or unemployment. And I think we'll have to work in India to create job opportunities and not worry as much about the American dream as about creating an Indian dream that works for all, for every Indian as we go forward.
Right, Mr. Natarajan, thank you very much on that note for taking the time out and speaking to us here on ET Now. All eyes will now be on the kind of policies that the Indian administration rolls out, the kind of policy push that it gives to companies, and how innovators, our own techies, really go on to innovate and make global products right here from India. Thank you very much, sir, once again for taking the time out.